the video. Christ my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom in learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work. For to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person, for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. All right, just in case our missing people don't make it today, let me mention sorry, I'm looking to see what page we're on. We are on, has anybody found it before me? 17, thank you. The difference between parallelism 1 and parallelism 2. For example, in this, in this paper, we have a really nice parallelism too. Charlemagne got up, mounted his horse, and rode into the forest. Beautiful. But the P1 in this paper is Charlemagne went home, told his council, and planned to stop him. That's also a P2. Is that, do you see the difference between a phrase or clause? Okay, here they come. I'll actually mention this again, and we won't reveal whose paper is whose. Hello, gentlemen. We just did the prayer, and I'm talking about papers. I'm defining the difference between parallelism 1 and parallelism 2. I have your two papers here, but I will not reveal whose papers they are. And the example that I just gave is, this is the parallelism 2. Charlemagne got up, mounted his horse, and rode into the forest. This is beautiful. This is 3 clauses. But as the P1, it's Charlemagne went home, told his council, and planned to stop him. That's also a P2. So P1 is 3 words, just the word. For example, he was a sly, crafty, and well-known king. Sly, crafty, well-known. As opposed to got up, mounted his horse, and rode into the forest. Do you all see the difference between those two? Just 3 words. I did have a question. So first of all, Easton, is this your outline?
Yeah.
Okay. Second of all, I'm not sure that I know, if you don't mind me asking, is your parallelism to into the woods on his horse and into the forest? That's fine, except the go kind of ruins the parallel. He snuck off. Actually, if we could, he decided to sneak off into the woods on his horse into the nearest forest.
Yeah.
But the go starts a new clause. He decided to do 2 things: to sneak off, to go. So you have the 3 in a row. But okay, that's a very picky point, by the way. I just want to make sure we understand the difference. All right, I do not have papers to collect from you because I didn't give you an assignment. We're going to write something this week, but we're going to stop doing these retellings of stories, and we're going to do something a little different. But first, let's talk about our questions from our Dorothy Mills book. So, who was living in Britain before the Angles and the Saxons arrived? Yes, Gus.
Pure Celtics?
Yes. When I was a little girl, and I'm not sure why this changed, they called them the Celts, but now they're the Celts. We're supposed to say the C with a hard K.
I saw the basketball team.
I know, except we still call them the Boston Celtics, and I don't know. So it's not Celtic music; it's Celtic music now. I don't know who made that decision, but apparently that's the way it is now. So the Celts are the Celts. So who was the first person? I didn't ask you this, and I don't even know if Dorothy Mills did tell you this. Who were the first people in history that we know of to encounter these people? Who first had a run-in with the Celtic people in Britain? Does anybody remember? It's fine if you don't. Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar. These are the people who made Stonehenge. These are the people who had druid priests in the forest and painted themselves blue before they went into battle and all sorts of things. And Julius Caesar happened to be fighting in Gaul, which is what they called France today. Except the Franks didn't live there yet. He was fighting, and those Gauls kept getting help from someone. And Julius Caesar said, I think it's from that island over there. I think people on that island are helping them. So he went over, and let's just say it didn't go well for Julius Caesar. He didn't stay. The Celts, the Thames River, you know, it's spelled Thames, but we call it the Thames, and it flows into London. It has an outlet to the sea, and the Romans sailed up the Thames, and the Celts drove sharp, pointed spikes into the bed of the river, but the pointy part was just below the surface of the water, so they couldn't see it. Excuse me. And when they ran their boats onto it, it ripped holes in their boats. And then when your boat sank and you were trying to get to shore out of the river, they just killed you. Didn't go well. So Julius Caesar went home. He went back to Gaul and decided not to deal with those people. But about 100 years later, the Emperor Claudius went over there. He sent an army over there, and they fought the Britons, these Celtic people, and they took over Britain. And they established all sorts of Roman towns with Roman bathhouses and forums, and it was a very upscale Roman place until the Roman Empire started falling apart. And does anybody remember, I think this was in the very first chapter we read before our first meeting, or maybe you just know this. Why is there no Roman Empire today? Why did the Roman Empire, especially in the West, start to unravel and fall apart? What happened to them? The Germanic tribes started coming over the borders and attacking them, and they just didn't have enough people and resources to deal with it anymore. Till slowly and slowly they just kind of dwindled and got taken over. Well, I want you to imagine something. You're the emperor and you're in Rome. And you have soldiers stationed all over the empire. But tribes are breaking into Italy and attacking you. What do you do with all those soldiers that are all over the empire? What might be a good military decision? Should we have a bunch of guys stationed up in Germany? Or what should we do with those soldiers?
Protect them.
Yeah, bring them back home. Bring them to Italy. We need help here. This is exactly what they did. So all the soldiers that were in Britain, they started calling them home. The Celts didn't like that very much. And here's why. They were now, well, the ones living in the south part of the island, we're very Roman. We're very civilized, and we wear the togas, and we're all cool. The guys living in what's now Scotland, not so much. In fact, one emperor built a wall. Hadrian built a wall across the island to keep the crazy tribes up north out. And he stationed soldiers along the wall. Well, those soldiers left because they needed them back home. And when they left, there was nobody to stop the Irish. Remember those Irish who were rampaging, kidnapping St. Patrick? And those former Celts, who are now very Roman, said, what happened? They're attacking us. So I'm not kidding, I'm not making this up. They sent a letter to Rome saying, we need help. Would you send your soldiers back? Because we're getting attacked and it's not, we don't like it very much. And they got a letter back that, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, not very much. It said something to the effect of, what is wrong with you people? Are you a bunch of wimps? Pick up some weapons and defend yourselves. We got problems here. We have bigger problems than you. You're going to have to deal with it yourself. That was kind of the deal. So, these guys were living there and they were being attacked by the people we know as the Picts, the Scots. So this is the next question I asked you. Why did the Angles and the Saxons originally come to Britain? Because right now we have Picts and we have Britons, but where did these Angles and Saxons come from? Elliot.
Well, they also sent a letter to them and asked them to help them in the king.
Hengist and Horsa are their kings, which I find it's rather amusing to say, Hengist and Horsa. These were Germans. These were Germans living along the coast in northern Germany, basically, today. And the king of the Britons, named Vortigern, he said, could you guys come over and help us a little bit? Because we got some problems here. And they came. They came and they helped. They fought off the Picts. And then what did they do? They just took over. You know what they actually did? I don't think Dorothy Mills told you this. They actually cut a deal with the Picts and teamed up with them. And they said, these guys are easy. We can take them. We could take over the country. These guys are pathetic fighters. And that is what they did. The Angles and the Saxons took over. Now, we read about these Angles before. You might remember that the guy who was going to be Pope Gregory later was walking through the slave market one day and he saw these very Scandinavian-looking, blonde, blue-eyed people. Like, who are they? They're Angles. And he said, oh, they should be angels. I'm going to send missionaries to them. Which kind of, I guess, tells you the second half of this. Were the Angles and Saxons Christians? They weren't. They weren't. The Britons had been Christianized, those Celts. They knew about the church, but when the Angles and the Saxons came in, everything just kind of went pagan again. It was drowned out until the Pope sent missionaries again. So why do we call that country England instead of Britain now? We do call it the British Isles. The whole thing is Britain, but that particular country is England. Why is it England? And not Britain anymore.
Because of the angles.
It's Angleland. Literally, it's Angleland. And if you say Angleland, 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 England, enough times it turns into England. If your mother is okay. I was coughing earlier. I felt like I gave it to her. We know quite a bit about these times. And it's actually, I want to skip to the bottom question. It's because of this father of English learning. Who is the father of English learning from this time? Bede. B-E-D-E. The Venerable Bede. Do you know what it means to be venerable?
Or memorable.
Yeah. What does it mean to venerate? If you venerate something, do you know? Or someone? You honor it. So venerable means honor, very honorable. So he's just known, that's just the title he gets. It's not me calling him venerable, he's the Venerable Bede. And what are some of the things he was into? What did he spend his time doing? Did anybody write down some of the particular areas that he taught and wrote?
Astronomy, medicine,
Yeah, music. Those might seem a little random, astronomy and music. They're two of the 7 liberal arts. There are 7 liberal arts that made an educated person, and those are 2 of them. He wrote histories, and we actually have his history. We have a history called The Ecclesiastical History of the English People. The English people. What does ecclesiastical mean? Do you know? If something is ecclesiastical, what is it? What does it have to do with? The Greek term for this was ecclesia, the church. The church. So if you write an ecclesiastical history, is it going to be full of wars and things? What's it going to talk about? Probably the church, and indeed it does. It's a history of how the Angles became Christians and the missionaries that came. So we have this whole book by Bede, and it tells us a blow-by-blow account of things that were going on. One thing it tells us about is this guy named Caedmon. What's Caedmon's story? What was his special gift? Did you write anything down, Riley? Do you have an answer?
Like his great poetry.
His great poetry. Exactly. Exactly. He stunk at poetry. He was terrible. And he worked at a monastery. He wasn't a monk, but he worked there. And they would have sort of open mic night, at the monastery after dinner, and people would compose poetry and sing it. And he always just left because he was so bad at it. And one night they were doing this and he left, and he was just kind of sitting in the stables. And this man came up to him and said, "Sing for me, Caedmon." And he said, "Well, if I could do that, I'd be in there with everybody else. I'm not good at that. That's why I'm out here." And he says, "Oh, you will sing for me. Sing." And suddenly he just comes out with this beautiful poetry out of nowhere. So when the monks living here found out that Caedmon could suddenly write poetry, they brought him to the person in charge, which happened to be a lady at this time. There was a monastery and an abbey right next to each other, and there was a lady abbess over both of them. They brought him to the abbess, and they said, something weird is happening with Caedmon, because he used to just really, really be bad at this, and suddenly he's good. She said, "Well, let's find out." And so she gave him an opportunity. He couldn't make poetry, but as soon as she gave him a biblical topic, a Bible story or something, he could turn it into poetry. Anything related to the Bible. We have a few scraps of his poetry, and keep in mind it's not in modern English, so it's a translation. But here's one that we have. Praise now to the keeper of the kingdom of heaven, the power of the Creator, the profound mind of the glorious Father, who fashioned the beginning of every wonder, the eternal Lord. For the children of men he made first, heaven as a roof, the holy Creator. Then the Lord of mankind, the everlasting Shepherd, ordained in the midst as a dwelling place, Almighty Lord, the earth for men. This is one of the fragments that we have from this man who lived about 600 AD, 650 AD, a long time ago. So it's something, Bede tells us all sorts of interesting little odd stories. Before we move on to one of the stories and how it's related to the pictures here, I also want to mention that Bede could read and write in Greek. And I mean, there's a lot of people today that can read and write in Greek, but back then in Europe, that had pretty much been lost. It was amazing to find someone in Europe that could read and write in Greek. It was all just Latin. And so he was a very learned man. So he told us about a king named Raedwald. And that's all we knew, this Raedwald, until in the 1930s, some lady invited some archaeologists in to dig around in a mound that seemed artificial, man-made on her property. And they dug up a burial, an Anglo-Saxon burial. And they're pretty sure it was King Raedwald. And in this burial, they found a few cool things. They found this helmet. It has been reconstructed. This is an Anglo-Saxon helmet. You know what my favorite thing about this helmet is? It's got a mustache and eyebrows. Because why not? Why not? I'll put it over here in the camera. They found it's a man purse. Honestly, it's a little carrying case with hinges. If it looks gold, it's gold. And if it enamel and precious jewels, this is not your everyday man purse. This is your dressy man purse. They found this in the burial. They found this beautiful shoulder clasp. It comes in two parts, and you see how it has little prongs, little things sticking out? So you put a cloak over, and then you put one half of it on the cloak and the other half on your tunic, and then you fold it together and you put the pin through, and it holds your cloak on your shoulders. Does that make sense? Like a clasp. Again, if it looks gold, it's gold. If it looks jeweled, or it's not going to show up on the camera very well. This was also in that burial, and we had no idea before then that these people were so incredibly wealthy. Some of these kings, kind of picture them as living in rather primitive circumstances. So what we are going to do today for our writing is we are going to write a paragraph about this burial site, about the excavation and the burial. And the site, the town that it's near, has the unfortunately kind of funny name of Sutton Hoo. It's just called Sutton Hoo. I can't change that. So I have a source for you, but first I want to talk about the way we're going to make our outline together. Up until now, we've been making outlines, and what sort of questions have we been asking ourselves? Where? Who is in the story? Where do they live? What else have we been asking? When? What kind of person? What's been key in the second and third paragraphs?
Like a problem.
Yeah, what's the problem? What do they want? How do they get it? How do they fix it? Can we ask those sorts of questions, all of them anyway, if it's nonfiction, if it's not a story, it doesn't have a plot, in other words? For example, say we were writing a paper about the moon. Would those questions be helpful? Does the moon have a problem? No. There's no conflict. There's no plot. When we write about a nonfiction topic, this doesn't really help us. So say your mom says to you, go write a paper, I want 3 paragraphs on the moon. What would you do first, do you think? Picture you're in this position. By the way, we're not writing about the moon, but what are you going to do?
Explain what the moon is.
Okay, and where are you going to get your information?
Online, probably, or in books.
In books. I will just, not online. I know you guys don't believe me. You really can't believe anything online. Now, probably if you Google how far away is the moon from the Earth, it's probably going to be accurate. But you might just want to, it's getting worse and worse. You might want to start getting used to now the idea that if it's online, anybody can put anything they want to online. It could be true or not. And now, just because there's a picture, you can't really trust it's true. It could be AI. Books, on the other hand, go through a process at the publisher of fact-checking. It's much more likely to be true. So I just want to And I'm probably falling on deaf ears, but so books. You're going to need a source. Because I don't know about you, but I don't know everything there is to know about the moon. In fact, I know not a whole lot about the moon. So I need a source. Now, if I want to write this paper, can I just copy down what my source says about the moon? Why can't I do that? Wouldn't that be the easiest way? Why not? It's called plagiarism. You can't just copy down what someone else wrote and say, I wrote this. Because A, it's immoral because it's stealing. B, it will get you kicked out of some schools. C, it's against the law. So what do? I need a source. I don't know about this subject, but I can't just write down word for word what the other people said. This is what we're going to do. We're going to practice. It's only going to be one paragraph. It's going to be really easy. We're going to practice writing a report, writing nonfiction. And here's your source. I have a paper about the Sutton Hoo burial. I believe there should be one for me. Take one and pass it around until it gets all the way around to Grace. And then if you write fairly small, you could do your outline here. If you write bigger, you can just use a blank piece of paper or a blank page in your reading guide. Or you could use the back. We'll probably have to flip back and forth, but if you don't care, that's fine. But yeah, the back's totally fine. And so I would like you on whatever paper you're using or blank spot, I would like you to put in an outline that looks like this. And then I'd like to write the word clincher at the bottom. All right. In our stories, actually, I'm just going to wait till everybody gets that down. Grace, can you see okay? Do you want me to twist it, turn it a little bit? If I turn it, I wonder if Gus can still see. Is that better? Yeah. Is that worse for you? I don't care. You don't care? Well, here, I'm going to back it up a little bit. Okay. In the outlines we've been doing, we've had 3 Roman numerals. What have we also had 3 of? Paragraphs. So a Roman numeral is a paragraph. In stories, our paragraphs told us characters, the setting, the plot development, and the resolution. In this case, when it's not a story, but it's just facts, the first sentence of the paragraph will tell us what the paragraph is about, the topic. So, what are we going to write about? What does it appear we're going to write about?
A burial.
A burial where?
Sutton Hoo.
The Sutton Hoo burial. That's what we're going to write about. So we're going to write that by the Roman numeral 1 because it tells us this is what our paragraph is about. We'll still try to, Sutton Hoo is really just one word because it's a name, but I think we don't need more than this. That is the topic of our paragraph. Now, we said we can't just read this and copy it down word for word because that's called plagiarism. But what we can do is look for facts and jot down facts. Now, do you suspect there are more facts on this sheet than we want to talk about? It looks like there's a lot of words on this sheet. So what we are going to do is we're going to look for 5 pieces of information that are interesting or important. If you don't think it's interesting or important, you can ignore it. Because we can't write down everything. Even these people didn't write down everything. There are probably books, whole books about this burial site. we just want to pick out 5 interesting or important things. So what we're going to do is we're going to read through this, and if you think it's interesting or important, or the majority of you do, we'll write it down. And if we don't, we'll skip it and go to the next thing till we find something interesting and important. When we find 5, we can quit. We're done. We did our job. So let's go. It says, in 1938, the owner of some large barrows, or mounds of earth, in Suffolk, England, wanted to find out what was inside. I'm going to read this whole section instead of just one sentence. She asked the local museum to find her an excavator. The following year, one of the most spectacular archaeological discoveries of the century was made. Is any of that interesting or important?
Maybe the year it was found.
Maybe the year that was found. We could argue that that's important. Show of hands. Who thinks that the year is important? Oh, okay. So let's put that down. That'll be our first piece of information. What happened to it in 1938? What's significant? What happened in 1938?
It got dug up.
Okay. Is there a word that means dug up? Excavated. Excavated. 1938. Really, that's only one word because the year is free. Numbers are free. Is there any other information that we could put there? What did they say about this when they excavated it? It was what?
Spectacular.
It was a spectacular what? It was a spectacular burial, spectacular discovery. I like spectacular discovery. How about we say it was excavated in 1938. It was a spectacular discovery. I've run out of space. This is not my 2, all right? This is the continuing of my 1. Great, we already got 1 of our 5. We're moving right along. Inside the largest barrow, they found the traces of a wooden boat 89 feet long. Is this interesting or important?
We found the boat.
Okay. So we want to try to stick with 3 words, jotting down 3 words. Remember, numbers are free. What can we write down to just remind us of this wooden boat that was 89 feet long? 89-foot long boat. I love it. Is there a way that we don't even have to use the word foot? We have 2 choices, actually. We could abbreviate foot. FT is the standard abbreviation. But does anybody know for another way that we can indicate feet? Yeah, it's a little tick mark like that, 89 feet. If you're not familiar with that, you can put FT. 1 little mark means feet, and 2 marks means inches. So 89 feet, or 89 FT, what was it, 89 foot long boat. That's pretty long. We see in the picture there are people standing. It looks like the same one that I brought the picture in, doesn't it? But a different person standing there. Although the body had long since rotted away, it had been surrounded with many beautiful and priceless objects. Interesting and important. The archaeologists believed that this was the grave of an East Anglian king called Raedwald, who died in about 625. Interesting. Oh, we like that. That seems, you dig up somebody, it might want to know who it is. All right, that seems like a lot of information. East Anglian king Raedwald died 625. What parts of that can we use, or what parts of that seem most important to you? We can, remember, use more than one line because there's more than one piece of information there. One, that he's an East Anglian king. Two, that he died in about 625. Those are different pieces of information. What do you like, Elliot?
I think King Raywald died.
Okay, King Raedwald died 625. We like that? We feel like it's important? Let's put it down. King Raedwald died. That's really old. We only need two more pieces of information. Raedwald was also declared Bretwalda, or High King of Britain. Nobody looks really very excited about that. That kind of leaves me meh. Let's skip that. Although the type of burial was pagan, not Christian, Raedwald was buried with some Christian objects. Possibly he had been converted to the Christian religion. Interesting or important? Nobody just seems real jazzed about that. We'll let it go. Let's take a look at the words here off to the right of the picture. The king's helmet, this is the helmet I showed you the picture of, has been reconstructed by specialists at the British Museum. It carries two emblems, a dragon over the crest and a bird across the face. The helmet and the sword and shield are similar to ones found in Sweden. So far, we got anything interesting or important? You guys are a tough audience. Maybe. Helmet. What do we want to say about the helmet? We got, here's some piece of information. We know it was reconstructed at the museum. We know it has a dragon on it, and it has a bird on it. And we also know that it's similar to ones from Sweden. Are any of those things interesting to you? Or do they seem important? Wow. That's fine. I'm not worried, because we only need two more tidbits and then we're done. I'm not worried at all. Other objects show how far people traveled at the time. Silver dishes from Constantinople were among the possessions of the English king. You know what? I'm going to step here and I'm just going to speak up for myself and say, I think that's kind of interesting. That's a really long way. Britain is kind of on the edge of the world as far as, the ancient and medievals are concerned. And this guy had silver dishes from Constantinople? How in the world did he get a hold of silver dishes from Constantinople? I like it. And it's very convenient. Silver dishes Constantinople is 3 words. I'm gonna vote that is interesting. It has silver dishes from Constantinople. All right, you're tough. You guys are tough, but if we could find one more interesting or important thing in this last little paragraph, we're done. All right, are we ready? The king was laid out ready for his journey to the next world in a seagoing clinker-built ship. By the way, clinker-built sounds, first of all, it sounds like it's not very good. Clinker-built sounds, but it's the way they join the beams together. It's a technical term for woodworking, for how the beams are joined together. Do we care? Yeah, I don't care either. All right. He had supplies of clothes, cloaks and leather shoes, spears and other weapons, and objects ranging from a lyre, which is a small harp, to a great bronze cauldron. It's got a bunch of stuff. I feel like if we just pick 3 things he had with him and fill them in on our last thing, we've got the last piece of information. So what do you like in that whole list of items? What's your favorite thing he had? He had spears, all right. Does somebody else want to vote for something on that list?
Maybe the kind of boat.
Okay. Do you like the clinker-built ship? All right, that's one. You can go ahead and put, we'll do options here. You could put clinker-built ship, spears in a clinker-built ship. How about if you don't like that and you want to just list 2 more items that he had buried with him? Cauldron. And a lyre. All right. So you've got choices here. You can go with spears, cauldron, lyre, or spears, clinker-built ship. Pick one, whichever you think is interesting. They don't all have to be the same. We kind of have to be the same because we're making an outline together. But if you were doing this on your own, you could pick anything you wanted that was interesting or important. Yay, we're done. All you guys need to do this week is rewrite this. And, hang on, I'm looking for my, there we go. I want to tell you what I mean by clincher now. People are not very attentive sometimes. And when we read things, do you ever read something and then you don't remember what you just read? Can we just all admit that? I do it too. Your mind is wandering a little bit. Isn't it interesting how your eyes can read the words and you can totally not know what you're reading? Do you know what I mean? And then you get to the bottom and you say, I know I read those words. Don't remember. This is fun Mrs. Ferguson fact. I used to read out loud to my kids a lot. Like a couple hours every day. Just read a lot. But sometimes I had babies, you know, and I would get tired. But I would keep reading even though I was asleep. I was kind of not conscious anymore, but my eyes could still read the word. I could read the words out loud. So I would read a couple pages, and then I would start kind of babbling, and my kids would either say, Mom, you're sleeping, or somebody would whack me. Mom, wake up. Or famously once, though, I was reading a book, but suddenly there was a Tyrannosaurus Rex in the book, but there wasn't. You know, I included that for some reason. My sleeping brain decided there would be a T-Rex. But then when we would go to the book to read the next time, see, I would start where I remembered, and they say, no, you read that already. And I'd say, are we here? No, you read that already. I have no memory because I was asleep. And I'd say, can you guys tell me what happened? But I read it. It's weird. So to fix the fact that we all blank out sometimes, if we want people to remember what we write or say, it is a wise idea to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And if they hear it 3 times, if I hear it 3 times, it might stick. So what will our paragraph look like? Our first sentence will tell us what this paragraph's about. Something like, the Sutton Hoo burial was an exciting and amazing find. Don't say, this paragraph is about the Sutton Hoo burial. Try not to refer to the paragraph. Just make a statement. The Sutton Hoo burial is a famous discovery in England. You probably will remember that since we're talking all this funny. Just basically turn it back into a sentence of some sort. And then just give me your pieces. Oh, it was excavated in 1938, and they all thought it was a spectacular discovery. They found a boat, and it was 89 feet long. Go through. Then when you get to the end, repeat what the topic is about. As you can see, the Sutton Hoo burial was very exciting for the people who found it. See, and then you've reminded me, what is this paragraph about? Oh, the Sutton Hoo burial. That's what the clincher is. We repeat or reflect, say the same exact words or words that mean the same thing from the topic sentence, except don't write the exact same words again, because that's really boring. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's what I want you guys to do. So it'll have 7 sentences, a topic sentence, your information, and then a reminder sentence, what we're talking about. I would like you to include your both kinds of parallelism. I'm going to make a suggestion. You know, at the very, very back of your reading guide, you've got the prayers. And if you flip the prayers over, you just have a blank page. And it's really easy to get to because all you got to do is do what Easton just did. And here's what I would suggest. Start a list of all the things we put in our papers. So why don't you go back. If you've already got a list somewhere else, that's fine. But that seems like a very useful place to put the list. So why don't you start a list there. Number 1, parallelism 1, or P1. And if you want to remind yourself, 3 words. 3 of the same kind of word. And then number 2, parallelism 2. 3 phrases or clauses. Remember, this is just a reminder. So when you write a paper for me for the rest of the year, you can just flip back there and say, did I have one of those? Yeah. Did I have one of those? Yeah. However many things we add to our list. Because we're going to add one today. It's easy. I think it's easy. Number 3 is the strong verb. We actually already used one in our outline. What do I mean by strong verb? First of all, what do I mean by verb? What is a verb? An action word, a word that tells what you can do. So it doesn't have to be action that you can see, right? Thinking, feeling, but something that you can do. So some verbs are kind of boring. Said. It's very boring. But yelled, whispered, chuckled, twittered. We can express it differently. Walk is kind of boring. But if someone walks, you don't know much about them. What do we know about them if they strut? He strutted into the room. What's he like?
Confident.
Yeah, he's very confident and a little proud. What if he trudged to the store? Does he want to go to the store? No, you see. But if I just say he walked to the store, I wouldn't know that. Guys, we already used one. Excavated. Excavated is a very, very specific strong verb. We've already given you one for this one. So in our papers, we're going to try to look for a way we can upgrade a verb. So if we use the word said, maybe we can think of a more descriptive verb than said. Or found. How could we upgrade the verb found?
Discovered.
Discovered. And I think we already put that in there too, right? And we're going to mark it SV. You know, in the margin, you can just put an SV out there, and I will know that means strong verb. So somewhere in your paragraph, put parallelism 1, parallelism 2, and upgrade a verb, which we already have a couple of already, so that will be easy. Any questions about that? Does that make sense? All right, awesome. Speaking of silver dishes from Constantinople, before we talk about Beowulf here, I wanted to show you a gold coin. And I think this gold coin is got a very funny story. This is a gold coin that was found in Rome, but it's from England. And you might say, well, how do you know it's from England? First of all, it says Offa Rex, King Offa. Offa is an English king that we know of from historical sources. So we know roughly when he lived, and we know it was him. And on the flip side, there's this wonky, weird-looking, squiggly design. Do you see that? And so we found this in Rome. It's very possible that King Offa sent this as a gift to the Pope. It was part of not just this one coin, right? It was part of a gift of money. But here's the funny thing. This is not a squiggly design. It's Arabic writing. It's upside down. And it says, "There is no God but Allah." You might say, why does an English coin have Arabic writing upside down on it that says there is no God but Allah? We don't know, but here's a likely scenario. A coin worked its way, just like those silver dishes from Constantinople, a coin from the Arabian Peninsula, from Persia, made its way to England somehow. You know, maybe the people in Constantinople or in Persia sold it to somebody in Constantinople, and they sold, you know, and it just keep changing hands. Do you ever find Canadian coins? When I was little, people don't use a lot of cash anymore. It was pretty frequent to get a Canadian penny or something like that, and almost always, if you looked in your purse or your wallet, you had some Canadian coin. And some places would take it, and they just wouldn't look twice. And some places, like, you know, it's a Canadian coin. Like, how did I get a Canadian coin? It just worked its way. It worked its way here. That this worked its way to England, and somebody saw this design, and they said, "Oh, that's really pretty. I'm going to put that on the coin," but they didn't know what it meant. So they put it upside down, and they put a Muslim saying on their coins. I think this is hilarious, personally, that people were running around, and then gave it to the Pope. There is no God but Allah. Here, Pope, this is funny. But it reminds us that even though this was a long time ago, goods and people were moving around. There was a lot of moving around. Yes, Gianna?
Did anybody notice, or did we just notice when we found it?
I think we just, we have no idea. We have no idea. But they did notice when they found it. It does not say when they found this. Okay, so you might wonder why I specifically had you read Beowulf this week. Beowulf is a poem written in England by these Anglo-Saxon people. For a long time, we didn't know about it. They didn't find it again till about 150 years ago. They just found it in a library. It was on paper, tucked into other papers, and they pulled them out, and they said, "What is this?" "Oh, it's an Anglo-Saxon poem about this hero and his monsters, and he's awesome, and dragons and whatnot." So it was written sometime between 600 and 1,000. We don't know when. It's kind of guesses from historical things that are mentioned in it. Now, for your interest, I thought you might like to see what it originally looks like. Before I give you this, I have to remind you, this is in Anglo-Saxon. If the Angles turned the country into England, what do we call Angle speech? It would be Anglish, which is very much like English. This paper I'm about to give you is English, but it's the earliest English we have, and it doesn't look like English. Here, I'm going to give you some, and Grace some, and there's probably going to be an extra one, which you can just set on the floor. If it hits you, Riley, you can just, extras, you can just toss on the floor. This is the beginning of the poem Beowulf. Yeah, it is, you can't read it now without training. And we're going to talk a little bit about how this turned into the English that we speak. It's gotten mixed in with some other languages. But yeah, this is English. This is English. If anybody is interested in hearing it spoken, I can send you a link. There's a guy who travels around with a harp and performs Beowulf in Anglo-Saxon. He's cool. His name's Benjamin Bagby. So I just thought this would be interesting. Don't put this away. All right, this piece of paper, because I want to get it back out again in a minute and talk about something about poetry. The second page is actually runes. They are the other language used. It's Norse runes. I thought you guys might have some fun with this if you wanted to write things in runes. And you will notice that the individual runes mean letter sounds, but they also mean things, right? So the list to the left tells you that first one, the A, also means oak. So some languages are very odd. English is alphabetic, right? The letters make sounds and you blend the sounds together and they make a word. Hieroglyphics, Egyptian hieroglyphics, for example, made sounds, but also some of the pictures meant a thing. And this is like that. Some of the runes actually mean a thing, but you can string them together and they make sounds. So if you want to spell your name out in runes or whatnot, this is just for your own, for kicks. No other reason. Because these were also in use by the Angles and Saxons, and we find monuments today in England marked with runes that we can decipher. But this is what the Anglo-Saxon looks like when we write it in our alphabet. So keep this out. Just set it on top of your reading guide there. And while we talk about Beowulf, but first let's just talk about this poem. So, what's this Beowulf guy like? What if you had to describe him, how would you describe him? What sort of guy is he?
Courageous.
Yeah, he's very brave and or courageous. What does he do that's so brave?
Deletes the monsters.
He defeats monsters. What do you have to do before you can defeat a monster?
Fight it.
You have to go out and fight it. That's the tricky part, right? If it were me, I'd just be hiding behind something, probably. He's very brave. Any other characteristics of this guy Beowulf? What kind of guy is he? Is he a good fighter? Is he a skilled fighter? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is he strong? Mm-hmm. How do we know he's really strong?
He ripped a giant's arm off.
He ripped Grendel's arm right out of the socket with his bare hands.
Very much detailed flapper.
Very much, and then hung it on the wall, and then we all had dinner. And I'm just thinking, I don't think I want to have dinner right next to the arm hanging on the wall.
Didn't he like fling it back and forth? I thought he did that.
I don't know. Fling it.
I thought he like grabbed it and swung it back and forth.
Maybe. See, now I'm curious. Now we have to look it up.
I mean,
These are the details that the gentlemen find very important.
I'm a little confused how the river was running with like boiling blood, but
Oh, yeah, in that lake, there's something not right with that
no,
lake.
not the lake. Right after he killed Grendel, there was a river and it was like flooded with boiling blood.
Oh, it's because Grendel is bleeding shoulder. He went down into this this lake. Okay, we gotta. Oh, there's a picture of the arm, so we ought to be able to find it easy enough. Oh, I can't. Do I not have a picture of the arm? Okay. No. Okay. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I'm on page 13. The monster roared in anguish. Oh, yeah. Oh, well done. Well Well done, Easton. But the hero rejoiced in his triumph and wildly waved in the air his blood-soaked trophy. Yeah. He's very strong. Why? Was this happening in Beowulf's home? No. He traveled to another kingdom, right, specifically to help out. Why would he do that? What does he get out of it?
The king had a lot of money.
Oh, he gets stuff. So we could ask ourselves, is Beowulf greedy? Would we characterize him as greedy? Because people who want stuff, we sometimes call greedy, but do you think that's the main reason he came? So if it's not the main reason he came, maybe that's just a byproduct, you know, I'm going to get some stuff out of it. What else is he going to get out of it? You know, when you rip giant monsters' arms out of the sockets, word gets out. People tell the story. What do we call people who, do we have a word for people who want fame and glory? I can think of one word, but I'm not sure it really conveys that. Can you guys think of what you would call somebody like that? A glory seeker, an honor lover. He's got anything? The best I can come up with is ambitious, but that's not really quite what I mean. Maybe we'll just have to call him a glory seeker or an honor lover. That's okay. We'll make up a hyphenated adjective we can't figure out. Why does Grendel, does anybody remember? Since Easton remembered waving the arm around, I feel like the bar is set very high for him because he remembers, although maybe we only remember gruesome details. Why does Grendel want to eat people at this, the king's house? Well, I mean, he's a monster. I guess maybe that's reason enough, but.
I just remember him saying that he wanted human flesh.
He wants human flesh. Let me read something from page 2. It says, a hideous monster lurked, fiend from hell, misbegotten son of a foul mother, Grendel his name, hating the sound of the harp, the minstrel's song, the bold merriment of men, in whose distorted likeness he was shaped. What does he hate? And do you think he just doesn't like the sound of harp? What?
The guy's celebrating.
He doesn't like people partying. Oh, like you're partying. And why might he not like people partying?
Because he doesn't get to celebrate anything.
They never invite him to the parties. I wouldn't invite him to the parties either. He hates human beings. So he eats them. This is very unpleasant. So Beowulf shows up. And weirdly, this guy named Unferth says, oh, you that Beowulf? I think I heard a story about you. Didn't you have that swimming contest with that Brecca guy? And I heard you almost drowned. I heard you screamed like a little girl, and somebody had to save you. Well, that doesn't seem very nice. And Beowulf just gives it right back. He says, oh, Unferth, you're a jerk. I'm wildly paraphrasing, but this is the sense. You're a jerk. And, hello, if you're so brave, why does Grendel keep coming every night eating people? Sounds to me like you're not man enough to deal with it. This is kind of did that strike anybody else as a little bit odd? Is that how we usually treat guests? No. And if you are a guest and you're insulted, we usually don't insult the host's, friends and family back. I feel like you will, especially the gentleman, will really enjoy this. It's an Anglo-Saxon thing. It is called, where's my marker? It's not called where's my marker. It's called flighting. It's an insult contest. Yeah, see, I told, they always love it. They always love it. Seriously, people would get together, there would be spectators. And you bring two people out and they just fling the most vile insults at each other. And then the spectators vote on who did the best job.
It's like putting them in a boxing ring.
Do not do this with with strangers. Only do it by mutual agreement with someone and who's not going to get their feelings hurt. That's all I have to say about that. But yes, flighting. Unferth and Beowulf do a little flighting. They come out insulting each other because it's a thing. We find out later that there's no hard feelings because Unferth actually gives Beowulf a sword to use when he goes after the one that you know is always coming. If you mess with the baby, what happens? The mother will come for you. Unfortunately, they didn't know there was a mother until Grendel goes home with his gaping, bleeding shoulder. And as Gianna pointed out, they live in this body of water that's not normal because it's full of monsters and whatnot. It says, it does describe it as a bit of a river. It says, and the cataract, it's like a waterfall, madly careering by the torrent tumbling and plunge perpetual over the dizzy brink to the darkness below. And it says, they find where the dark spirits dwell. We hear, now they were moving, long serpents looping the sluggish wave. One, bolder than his fellows, came speeding toward them, slithering over the foam. Is this a normal thing that happens? Is any of this normal? What kind of stories do we tell that involve things that you don't normally encounter today? Can you think of an example of a well-known story or a famous story that's the sort of things that wouldn't be normal if they happened today? Okay, that I'm thinking of something older because that is, it wouldn't be normal, but it's got a scientific reason for it, supposedly, as far as, but I'm thinking more old stories, like Jack and the Beanstalk. What in that story might we think was rather odd?
The giant beanstalk, the giant's house.
Okay, everything about that story. The fact that beans are magic and they make a huge beanstalk and it goes, what? And you climb up it, and he's living in the sky and he's a giant. This is all not normal. Do we think about Jack and the Beanstalk happening yesterday? No, we think about it when? If long ago in a land far away where things are different from us. This is just speculation. Do you think these Anglo-Saxons living in Britain, do you think this was a normal thing that happened? I don't either. I don't either. They had the same sort of thing going on. Long ago, back when there were monsters. But we like to tell stories of monsters, ergo Jurassic World, right? We like stories about monsters, but we just don't like them when they move into the neighborhood. All right. I asked you if you got a vibe, to see if you got a vibe for if the characters in this book are Christians or not Christians. What was your vibe, Gianna?
The beginning, I listened to my book,
Mm-hmm.
and in the beginning it actually told me.
Oh.
The introduction, it has it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, tell me what it says in the introduction.
It says it's, I believe it says a Anglo-Saxon
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was there. Well, all right. Bonus points for the people who read the introduction, and if no problem if you didn't. We hear about God the Father, God the Father. But then listen to this. When Beowulf goes down to go after Grendel's mother, he says he doesn't know if he's going to come back. For secret are the ways of fate, and her word final. Do Christians usually talk about fate? That fate is ruling things? We don't, do we? And as you read this, oh, then 2 pages later, it mentions God the Father again, and then you turn a few more pages and it's fate. Kind of right on the edge. Whoever wrote this poem is right on the edge, just like it says in the introduction. So he takes out Grendel and Grendel's mother. And then he goes home and he rules his people for 50 years. And then what happens? Man, I feel like he earned his rest for the rest of his life. But no, there's a dragon in the neighborhood. And it's not been a problem. Apparently it's been in the neighborhood a while. But what happened? Does anybody remember what happened?
Somebody stole something.
Somebody stole a golden jeweled cup from this blasted dragon. Now, we all have to remember that dragons always have hordes. Do we know this? Have we read enough stories about dragons? Dragons like stuff. They like valuable stuff. And they really don't like it if someone steals their stuff.
The Hobbit.
Yes, I wonder if anybody would know. We're going to be reading The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, second semester. So if you've never read it, and if you've read it before, great. I've read it about 10 or 12 times, and you can't read it too many times. So there you go. So somebody steals a cup, and it ticks him off. And what has changed for Beowulf? What's different now for Beowulf than when he was fighting Grendel?
He's old.
It really stinks, but people get old. Even heroes get old. And it says, unafraid he waited, yet, as never before, with no blaze of battle in his soul, nor blood yearning, nor champing of steed, nor delirious charge of chariot wheels, only a deep, brooding sadness as he pondered upon death. Then for the last time he spoke to his warriors, greeting them man by man. Dearest comrades, I'm ready now. Let the dragon face me if he dare. I wish I could fight him with my hands as I fought Grendel, but his breath is fire, all swollen with poisonous blasts, and I need my battle steel, my stout mail coat, and thick-plated shield. He says, no man can play the hero, pit his might against the monster. No man but myself. He's still kind of glory-loving, isn't he? I shall not yield an inch. My courage surely shall kill and win the treasure, unless fate, whose word is final, to whom in obedience unquestioned even kings must bow, shall deal me death. He still wants to do it by himself. You guys might not know this, but I have a secret for you. Old people aren't old in their own minds. When you see old people, there's a young person in there. It's still in there. And unless they become very bitter and crotchety and become like the crabby old man that won't let kids play on his lawn or whatever, you know. Some old people do get old inside. But a lot of old people don't get old inside, and they think they can do everything they did when they were young because they don't realize that they got old. Is that something that would happen to them and to us today? Is this something true? It's true for all times. It's true for all times and all places. And so we found this poem, that had been lost for over 1,000 years, and we read it and we thought, holy cow, yeah, I know how he feels. I can take him. I don't think I can do it with my bare hands. You know, he does breathe fire, but you guys stay back. Don't help me. I got this. I got this. Oh, Beowulf, you're 70 years old or more. I don't think you got this anymore. It's kind of sad. What does he plan to do with the treasure? Do you remember? What does he say he wants to do with the treasure? Or why does he want the treasure?
To give it to all the people.
I'm going to give it to my people. I'm going to win this treasure for my people. Yeah. What do they end up doing with it? Do they share it out to all the people? What do they do with it?
They bury it with them.
Bury it. And why don't they keep it? It's worth a lot of money.
Well, I know because it felt dishonorable.
Well, yeah, because he lost his life for it. There's actually another reason too. It says, they raised the mound, the burial mound, burying the treasure beneath, jeweled flagons, gold rings and goblets, all that wonder of wealth. For there was a curse upon it. No man dare keep it. Why is there a curse on it? We don't know. But hoards that have belonged to dragons, don't take them. If you ever get the opportunity, just say no and walk away. This is a very good introduction to the next book we're going to read, which is The Children of Odin. It is Norse mythology. It's Odin and Thor and Loki and all of that crew. Keep in mind, cursed treasure. All right, we're not going to get to it for a while. This week, I want you to read pages 1 through 44. Does everybody have a book that looks like mine? I got this one. It's like the cheapest one. It's kind of the no frills version. It doesn't have cool pictures and everything. It's not very exciting looking, but it's not very expensive. So I picked this one. Pages 1 through 44. Now, we have a few minutes left, and I have a couple things I want to do before then. Does anybody want to make another comment about Beowulf before we move on?
The ending was sad, in my opinion.
The ending is sad. He's gone. He was great in his day, but even the great get old and get taken out by somebody greater. However, the dragon lost his life too, and that's good. And then Wiglaf, his kinsman, gives everybody a tongue lashing. You dirty, rotten scoundrels, you lived with Beowulf all these years and took his gifts and ate his food and drank his wine, and then you just let him go face that dragon and get killed. It is sad. Okay, maybe these things will not be so sad. Oh, I thought of two more things I wanted to mention about Beowulf before we move on. And this is, look at this paper. I asked you, I'm sorry if you already put it away because you thought, oh, Mrs. Ferguson gave up. Everybody look at the fourth line down. I'm not going to try to read this, although I'm hoping to take some Anglo-Saxon classes in the next couple of years and be able to. The one that starts with the word that looks like oft.
Oh, I thought that was your feet.
What? Oh, okay. I think it's oft. What do you notice about the words in that line? Is there anything noticeable? And then look at the line below it. There's something true in both those lines. What do you notice, Gus?
Well, in the first one I use like S.
Yes.
M.
Yes. Do you see in those two lines that there's one line, there's a bunch of S's, and the next line there's a bunch of M's? Listen to this retelling. Remember, this isn't even a translation. This is just a retelling. But listen to me read a couple of lines. And the hall of Heorot rang loud and long with woe of warriors and grief of the great king. Night after night over the misty moor came Grendel, gross and grim, famished for flesh. What do we call it when we start words with the same sound? There's a name for that. I actually just did it. Start words with the same sound. You remember? It's called alliteration. Alliteration. Anglo-Saxon poetry doesn't rhyme. It doesn't really have meter like we think of meter. It alliterates. So if you look at these lines, you will see many, many lines. Often there's two words in the first part of the line that have the same sound, and then another one later in the line. That's what made it poetry, alliteration. And another Anglo-Saxon poetic thing is something called kennings. You might have noticed some of these. Instead of saying, I've got a bunch of examples in the manual, but, instead of saying the ocean, they call it the whale road. Over the gray Baltic, the wintry, wintry whale road. It's two words that describe something instead of saying the thing. For example, what do you think, what do we call a war mask? A helmet, yes, so we call it a war mask instead of a helmet. What do you think the sky candle is? The sun, but we call it sky candle because it sounds pretty. What do you think your bone house is? Your body, your body. There is a character in this book described as a sky plague. Which creature do you think might be a sky plague? The dragon, because it can fly. Do you get the idea? Those are kennings. All right, I wanted to mention that, but and I don't think we're going to have time to look at this. I'm going to have to get that out next week. Another thing the Angles and Saxons love to do is tell riddles. And we have found some of their riddles. Unfortunately, we have not found the answers. So we have what we think are the answers to some of them. I'm going to read a few of them. Now, by the way, these riddles are not, ha ha ha, that's so funny riddles. They're brain teasers. They're descriptions of something, and then you have to figure out what is being described. Does that make sense? Okay, so this one is really hard, I think. But the wave over the wave, a weird thing I saw. Thorough wrought and wonderfully ornate, a wonder on the wave, water become bone. Water become bone, wonderfully ornate. Any conjectures? By the way, I can't tell you you're wrong because we didn't find the answers. We just have probable answers.
I thought it was a boat till it said water moved to bone.
Yeah. Become bone. When does water become bone, as it were?
Ice.
Ice. And ice is wonderfully ornate. Have you ever looked at the ice crystals? That's our conjecture. But we don't know. All right. Try this one. This one's a little longer. If I can find it. Oh, here we go. There is on earth a warrior, wonderfully engendered. Engendered means brought into existence. Between two dumb creatures, it is drawn into brightness for the use of men. By the way, dumb means they can't talk. It doesn't mean stupid. Between two dumb creatures, it is drawn into brightness for the use of men. Meaning harm, a foe bears it against his foe. Fierce in its strength, a woman may tame it. Well will he heed and meekly serve both men and women, if they have the trick of tending him and feed him properly. He promotes their happiness, enhances their lives. Allowed to become proud, however, he proves ungrateful.
Dog. Yeah, it sounds like a pet.
Except how is he engendered between two dumb creatures? Well, I guess dogs, his parents can't talk. How does he become ungrateful and proud if he's, do you think?
He's like his master or something.
Does everybody like the dog idea?
I think a horse just, I don't know, always make more sense to me. Because they could use them in battle, which technically could use dogs.
Yeah, he bears against what you could. Okay, because of time constraints, I want to read one more. Their answer was fire. But I really can't say that dog is a bad, again. But let me read it again and then you think fire. There is on earth a warrior wonderfully engendered between two dumb creatures, either steel and flint or sticks. It is drawn into brightness for the use of men. Meaning harm a foe may bear it against his foe. Fierce in its strength, a woman may tame it. Well will he heed and meekly serve both men and women if they have the trick of tending him and feed him properly. He promotes their happiness, enhances their lives. Allowed to become proud, however, he proves ungrateful, burns your house down. I don't know. Some of them are much worse than this, but this is my favorite one. All right, we'll end with this one. My home is not silent. I myself am not loud. The Lord has provided for the pair of us a joint expedition. I am speedier than he and sometimes stronger. He stays the course better. Sometimes I rest, but he runs on. For as long as I live in him. If we leave one another, it is I who must die. I'm going to read it one more time while you think of it. My home is not silent. I myself am not loud. The Lord has provided for the pair of us a joint expedition. I am speedier than he and sometimes stronger. He stays the course better. Sometimes I rest, but he runs on. For as long as I live in him. If we leave one another, it is I who must die.
To me, it sounds like, I don't know, but for some reason I thought of like a heart or an arm.
Except how would one, I rest and he runs on? Oh, but your heart runs on in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we leave one another, it is I who must die. If the heart is speaking, that would be okay. But then he couldn't say sometimes I rest if he's the heart. Well, because the chime is ringing, I will tell you, their proposal is a fish in a stream. And let me read it again with that in mind, and then I'll let you go. My home is not silent. I myself am not loud. The Lord has provided for the pair of us a joint expedition. I'm speedier than he and sometimes stronger. A fish can swim ahead of the stream. He stays the course better. He goes all the way to the sea. Sometimes I rest, but he runs on. For as long as I live in him. If we leave one another, it is I who must die. Cool. All right. Do some flighting, some parent-approved, friend-approved flighting. Maybe make up a riddle or two for your friends and see. If you want to make up one and bring it to us, we can try to puzzle our way through. Otherwise, read the next section of Dorothy Mills. It's written in your reading guide. Write the paper on Sutton Hoo Burial and read pages 1 through 44 of Children of Odin, and I will see you next week.